Welcome to the living room. Come on in, have a seat. We have a wonderful show for you today. In the living room, we talk about the issues of life. We talk about things that we all talk about in our living rooms, sometimes in private. We talk about the issues of life in public. And today we are talking about the subject boundaries. Boundaries. And that is a multifaceted subject. So boundaries. What are boundaries? They are lines. They are lines that are there for a purpose. So when we think about boundaries and we think about the lines, when is it okay to cross the lines? We're talking about boundaries today between friends. We're talking about boundaries between you and your grown children. We're talking about boundaries between you and your children that are at home. When do you stay out of people's business? When do you stay out of your friend's business or anything else? When is it your business, and when is it truly none of your business? We're going to talk about boundaries with male-female relationships, pastor-parishioner ministry relationships. We're going to talk about all kind of relationship boundaries today. And I'm here with my good friend and my co-host, Michelle.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, how was your day?
It was good. Busy, but good.
Busy, but good.
Yes.
And we're going to do something, Michelle.
Okay.
You know, we always have the living room logo up, but because we're in the living room, today we're going to put up on our LED wall a picture of a living room, because that's what we're going to be in.
Okay.
That living room. So, Michelle, we've been talking about boundaries, and you know, you and I had some awesome conversations about this. So let's start off on how we came to this. You know, I was watching that movie. It's an old movie, you guys, called Brown Sugar.
Yes.
And in this movie, Brown Sugar, Sanaa, how do you say her name?
Sanaa Lathan.
Sanaa Lathan, and is it Ty Diggs?
Taye Diggs.
Taye Diggs. So they are really good friends, and he's called Hip Hop.
Yes.
Okay, so, and some of you have seen this movie. So they're very good friends in the movie, and Hip Hop gets married to another woman because they're just friends. So Hip Hop gets married. The problem is, the challenge is, I won't say problem, but the challenge is that Hip Hop, Taye Diggs and Sanaa Lathan, however you say her name, she knows her name, they still remain best friends. Actually, he's a better friend to her than he is to his wife. So there's this one scene in the movie, and I wanted to hit the ceiling, and I called Michelle, and we decided we needed to do a show on boundaries. So there's this one scene in the movie where Hip Hop's wife, and this is not an excuse, so I'm not looking at this as an excuse, but she's so rejected because of Hip Hop's friendship with, I don't remember her name in the movie.
Yes.
But with Sanaa Lathan, that she's out having dinner with another man. Hip Hop finds out about it, I can't remember how, but he goes and gets his best friend, Sanaa Lathan, and together the two of them come and sit down at the booth, and he's going to confront his wife about being with this man at a restaurant when he's brought his female best friend to this restaurant. And I'm like, how hypocritical, et cetera, et cetera. So, Michelle, let's talk.
In that situation, there were so many boundaries that were crossed throughout that whole movie.
Talk to us about them.
So, whose responsibility is it to set boundaries? Whose responsibility is it to set boundaries? Was it the guy's responsibility? Is it the wife's? Is it the friend's responsibility? Who should take responsibility for setting boundaries?
Well, and you know what I would say to that, because that's a question we didn't even talk about that. I would say all of the above, but not equally.
Okay.
All of the above. I think the first person that needed to set those boundaries was him. At such a time that he got married to the pretty lady, I can't remember her name either. I need to look these people up. But at such time he married her, he needed to tell his best friend, first of all, we can only be friends, period, if you're friends with my wife.
Absolutely.
Okay, if she's not friends with the wife, she needs to just hit the road Jack or hit the road Jane.
Usually women know if it's something extra going on there, and we'll shut it down.
Well, even if there was nothing extra, even if it's a totally platonic relationship, a man cannot have another woman as his best friend. That's my opinion, and we're on Facebook, and so if you have an opinion, Michelle's checking out the Facebook. So first of all, I think it's his primary responsibility. I think it was the wife's responsibility to make sure she's letting the husband know this is not acceptable, because too many times people come into marriage and they need to, well, let's put it this way. When you get married, you need to have talk to your spouse about what you expect and what you don't expect. But then the friend, Sanaa Latham, how do you say her name again?
Yes, Sanaa Latham.
Sanaa Latham. For her, this is a grown woman. Okay, she should know you can't keep being the best friend.
The same, it won't be the same.
It won't be
relationship.
the same.
Relationships have to change when you are in a committed relationship, definitely in a marriage.
Okay.
But a lot of people feel like things should stay the same. So I was sharing with you, I was in a similar situation like that when I was dating someone, and he had a lot of female friends, right? So, and I'm not the jealous type because I have brothers. I grew up with a lot of guys. So I understand, I believe you can definitely totally be platonic friends, male and female. However, there was one situation where one of his female friends cooked dinner for him, but didn't invite me over.
Wow.
So that was a huge, I was really upset. And I told him not to go. He still ended up going anyway, because they were friends before he and I met. And so to me, I felt like it was up to him to set that boundary, and he didn't. So I definitely walked away from that situation. But
And this is where things can get really sticky, because when a woman goes to tell another woman to step back rather than telling her guy, you need to step back, and if you don't, there's some consequences. You can't have me and her.
Right.
Okay, that's the bottom line. So sometimes it's a woman settling for second best because she's so afraid to lose that man. Okay? Those boundaries have to be set before people go into marriage, if they're going to get married. And the main thing is they could always come and get some counseling. I don't think there's a counselor in the world that is going to tell a married man another woman could be his best friend. And that goes to what we were talking about, even with family members. If you're married, your spouse comes first before mom, before dad, before the children. Okay.
People don't like hearing that part either. So that's what I was saying. Whose responsibility is it to set boundaries? For me, I try to set my own personal boundaries.
Okay.
I know my limits. How far I'm willing to go with something. And when I start seeing red flags with certain things, I'll shut it down. So I was talking to you about even being in ministry. Sometimes,
wait a minute, before we go there, you just said something that shows you know your worth. You just said you're willing to shut it down.
Yes.
And too many times people are desperate.
But I wasn't always like that. I used to be the people pleaser, the yes person, even when it was like my very, very last. And I'm not above giving my last, but I would do it knowing that, it wouldn't be reciprocated, knowing that, and then I would end up feeling bad because I'm doing more for another person than they would ever do for me. So once I started taking responsibility for myself in that, I'm like, I can't get mad at them because I'm the one that keeps doing it. So.
And wait a minute, and let's go back to what I was saying. Too many times, even Michelle, come on, even in high school, we saw the guy had two girls on the side. We saw How many fights did I see where two girls are fighting over a guy, okay, and he's on the side, you know, and they're acting like fools, tearing each other's clothes off, everything hanging out. You know, I can remember this, but once again, if a woman doesn't know her worth, if she doesn't know her value, she'll settle for something like that. And instead of telling him, you can't have me and her, and I know my worth.
People end up doing, they'll suffer in silence. They'll just suffer in silence because they're not speaking on it. They're not setting those boundaries for themselves. And then now they're mad with other people. So that's why I was asking that question. Whose responsibility is it to set boundaries?
And once again, I'll say my same answer is different people. Let me give you another movie.
Okay.
You know, I love movies. I don't have time to watch movies like I used to, but I can remember them. So last week, Think Like a Man was on again, and I hadn't seen that in a long time. So I saw Think Like a Man, and in Think Like a Man, you have the mama's boy. You have the woman that, and okay, we're talking about boundaries now, and we can come from personal situations with this too. So you have the mom who's controlling her son's life. She was never going to like any of his girlfriends. And you especially see this with single women who have like one son. And honestly, I can't say that. I've been in ministry for many years. I've seen this with women who have a lot of children, and they still don't know when your son gets to be a grown man that you got to step back. So this is what I told one of my sons. And you guys know I have 4 sons. So I can remember driving my sons home from school, and I was telling my children, my 4 sons, I said, listen, you guys, I am the number 1 woman in your life right now until you get married. But when you get married, your wife will have to be the number 1 woman. And one of my sons said, no, Mom, you're going to always be the number 1 woman in my life. And I'm like, no, your wife will have to be the number 1 woman. And this is where mother-in-laws need to learn to step back. She's number 1, not you.
Absolutely. So you all met my son last week.
Oh,
Stephen.
yeah, Stephen.
And so when you said the only son, I'm like, oh, I don't know if I'm ready for that. I don't know if I'm ready for that. No, but no, I teach him the same thing. And even now with certain decisions that he's making concerning his life, we have those boundaries. He's a young adult man, and he has to make certain decisions on his own. And even though sometimes I'm cringing at those decisions, I understand that there are certain boundaries that we just don't cross. You know, he does still live with me, but he's respectful of the rules and different things like that. And so I think it's just important to make sure that you have those boundaries in place and that you do talk about it in relationships. And like you said, before getting married, with family members, you should have these conversations beforehand. So my son, same thing. I've kind of already been prepping him for it because I think he's gonna marry young. But so I'm already getting myself ready, prepared for it.
Well,
but
I'm gonna tell you
absolutely,
what I told my sons. Okay, and they'll laugh. A couple of them are watching right now. I told my sons, do not get married before you are 27 years old. I want you to make sure you have $5,000 in the bank. And I want you to have a good job.
Yes.
But at 27, and then as they got closer, then I changed it to 28, 29, and 30. And that's about where I am right now. I don't think most men need to get married before they're 30. I really don't think. I think too many men.
They're not ready.
They're just not ready to settle down with the responsibilities of life and with one woman without a side, whatever you want to call her.
Or friends. Or all these friends. So even my son, he has a lot of female friends too. And I'm like, you know, are you sure that's all they want to do is be friends? So,
but you know, there's another boundary you and I didn't talk about. When you said friends, what about the man who has a whole lot of male friends?
Yeah.
And they always want to be at the house.
Yes. At the house, always hanging out, or playing basketball, going to the gym.
Yeah, going to the gym, hanging out. There's boundaries that have to be taken into account right then, And this is why, and for all you young ladies out there, listen, a ring is not worth your PEACE. A ring is not worth your peace. You have to set some boundaries before you walk down that aisle. And I want to go back to the mother-in-law thing for a second, because my son and his wife, my son Pastor Corey, and his wife Tanaya, and their 2 daughters have been living with us for about a little over a year, because we asked them to come live with us so that they could save up some money for a future house. And I love my daughter-in-law, and we get along really good. And one of the reasons is because of boundaries. So they have, in our house, we have a pretty big house.
Your house is huge.
It's
Absolutely.
huge.
I was
Okay.
teasing. I said, there are probably days that go by that you don't even see each other. Your house
There
is
are
that big.
days like that we don't see each other.
Yes.
But she's like I was when I was her. She's an introvert. But the thing is that they have 2 rooms and a bathroom. And so they're getting ready to move in a couple of weeks. And I had knocked on the door because I wanted to start taking inventory of what I was going to do with that room when they leave. And she said, come in. And I said something about, and I walked in, and that's the first time. Maybe the second time. Okay. And they've been there, like I said, a year and 6 months. And I said, I didn't know that was there. And she said, Mom, that's been there forever.
Wow.
And I'm like, Tanaya, I don't step in this room. I knock on the door, and I talk to you from the hallway, because that's your apartment. And I
Yes.
never just go walking into that room. I knock, and I still don't go in. I talk from the hallway, because even though that's my house, that's a boundary.
Absolutely.
That's as far as I'm concerned, that's their apartment. And so that's a boundary. And we got to get to some other ones too. So I know you had some
No,
listed.
that's good. That's good. So I was looking up, there are technically, I guess, 6 different types of boundaries.
Oh.
Physical, emotional, time, intimate, intellectual, and your property. Boundary
I
with
gotta
your
write
property.
those down.
Physical, emotional,
Okay.
boundaries with your time.
Okay.
So I was telling you, in ministry, sometimes, especially when I first started out in ministry, I would get calls like all times of the day and night. And I had to set boundaries with that. So even the other morning, in the morning, I don't answer my phone. I try not to until at
good.
least around 6 or 7 in the morning, because this phone will keep ringing. And I got a call the other morning at like 3:30 in the morning.
In the middle of the night?
Yes. And so I looked at the phone, I prayed about it, and it was like, I'll answer it in a few, because I knew who the person was.
Okay.
Now, I could have answered it and then been upset and, my sleep interrupted, because I knew it wasn't an emergency.
Okay.
And so that's where I like I said, it's my responsibility to take action and to set those boundaries for myself, right?
Right.
Because sometimes we'll be like, it's hard to say no. And it's like, okay, well, I better answer it because it might be a real emergency or a real problem. And we know that it's not, And sometimes, too, I think that some people have a need to be needed like that. So they'll rip and run to every situation, show up to everything, answer every call. And it really does wear you out. So not having boundaries can affect you emotionally, physically, financially, with your time. I work sometimes 16, I work a lot of hours.
You work a lot of
hours. So waking up at 3 in the morning to talk to someone for 2 hours, that's not a good thing for me.
But once again, who's responsible to set those boundaries?
Absolutely. So I had to tell that person, unless it is an actual 911 emergency, and in that case, you need to call 911. Do not call my phone that early in the morning. But sometimes people think because I'm a single woman, like I'm not doing anything anyway, so I have the time. I don't know.
I
what
think
people think.
that is, I think that's something that I hadn't thought about, the time boundaries. But I was mainly thinking about relationship boundaries. And so for me, something happened in my life today that I really did need to take care of, but I knew there was something that was more important, So, and actually, this is amazing. I'm so glad you set that up because it is our responsibility. So, I teach Facebook, my Facebook Live Bible
Yes.
study every day from 12 to 1. I ask you to join us. This week, I had some goals because I've gone into a new chapter, John chapter 12, and I have so many notes. I mean, I'm always meditating. I have so many notes every place. And so I needed to just consolidate those notes and put them in my computer as in one message. Well, every day this week, and today's Wednesday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, something has come up that I have not been able to do. I've been able, but I've allowed that to take priority. Today, another situation came up with somebody else that I needed to talk to. But you know what I said? I said, you know what? On this day, I need to take care of what I need to do with this Bible study. I have people coming on. They want to hear a word from God. And if I am taking care of everybody else, I can't do that. And so I just said, I sent a text. I can talk this time, two different people. I said, I sent a text the times that I could talk. Actually, in about an hour, I'm going to be getting some calls. But I did not allow that the boundary that they did not know. See, sometimes people don't know there's a boundary there. That's on me to let them know. Finish that because I want to go to a couple other places here.
Yes. So
I have
with
all
time,
this stuff written down.
And then respecting people's boundaries, like how you're saying with your daughter-in-law. This season, a lot of people have been going through like a lot of grief, different job changes, a lot of different things that's been going on. So I have someone that's really, really close to me, lost someone that's really, really close to them. And this person was like, I don't want anyone coming to my house. I don't want any phone calls. I just got to get through this season right now. So some people were still calling, still showing up. And then on top of it, the person did pass because of COVID. So they don't want to be around people. It's just, it's a lot going on.
Right.
And I notice how people don't respect other people's boundaries. And this person is telling you they don't want you to come, and you're still showing up with food and showing up. And I know sometimes you try to do it because you're trying to be caring. Yeah. And I'll be honest, it's been really hard for me to respect this boundary because I'm like, I want to just be like, I was just in the neighborhood. But then I think back to, what, this is what they asked for.
If somebody puts out a boundary, they put the line out there, especially in that situation, COVID, death. Well, okay, if you want to bring some food, put it on the doorstep and ring the bell. Okay, and let me just give you, like for me, okay, and it's not even a death situation. So I am a Mary Kay director, and I have people that order stuff, and a lot of times I'm making a delivery. Most of the time I try to put it in the mail, but a few times I'm making a delivery. But I know I'm not going in anybody's house, but I also know they don't want me to come in their house.
Right.
So all I do is I send them a text message. I'm on my way. I'm going to put this order on your doorstep. And sometimes I just I don't even come right then. But whenever I put the order on the doorstep, as I leave, last week, I left, I pulled over to the side, send a text message, your order's on your doorstep. But in a situation like that, where somebody's person has died, relative has died, and they've asked you, and it's fresh.
Yes.
Because if it's like 3, 4, 5 months, and they still are, and it's not COVID, then they might need somebody to help
Absolutely.
them. But I'm just going from your situation. Then if somebody's asked you don't come to their house, then don't come to their house. Okay, to me, that's simple. That's a boundary that they've set. So let's go to food real quick.
Okay.
I have all these things here.
Okay.
So Sunday, somebody did something for my husband and I said, I'm going to use this on the show. So we have a lady, Sabrina. So Sabrina made a broccoli chicken casserole. She had made them for several people. So she brings a broccoli chicken casserole to the church for us. She also knows we both like peach cobbler, although his is still in the refrigerator. I eat mine the same day. But she knows I'm really careful about my sweets, what I eat. So she bought me a little thing of peach cobbler, and she bought him a bigger thing. And I said, that was so awesome that she did that. One, she gave it to me.
Yes.
Okay, over the years, now this is for the pastors' wives out there. This is for all you ministers' wives. Okay, let me just tell you how Pastor Charlene does it and how I've done it for many years. Okay, I've actually had to go and tell people this. My mother-in-law taught me something, Mom Pearl Singleton, because she was a pastor's wife. And different times, women that didn't like my mother-in-law would send food or bring food to the house or send it with her husband. And I have watched, she's gone on to glory now, but I watched my mother-in-law take food and just throw it in the garbage. Seriously, I watched her do this on a few occasions.
Wow.
If you don't bring it right, then don't bring it, okay? And so Sabrina, thank you so much for being that example. So Sabrina, she gave it to me as the wife, because if I'm going to make food for anybody's family, there is no way under the sun I'm giving that to the husband.
Absolutely.
I mean, if I call her and she says, I'm not going to be at church, or can you give it to my husband? But no, that's a boundary line.
And sometimes people feel because it's their pastor.
Oh my gosh.
That they have that access to you.
They can, and you know what? That's that old school, Michelle, and people do feel like that because it's my pastor. Well, no, I don't play that, because one time I said, okay, if they make some food for my husband, I'm gonna make some food for theirs.
Okay.
Because the average woman doesn't. A pastor is a pastor, but he's a husband first.
Yes.
He's a husband first, and most pastors don't know how to. They don't want to rock the boat.
Or be rude and turn it down.
So that's up for the wife to be friendly and say it. But there have been, I'll be honest, there's been a couple of occasions in the last 46 years where we've been the pastors here, and where I've just gently told a woman, you know what, I think that's so nice that you want to make food for our family, but it needs to be for our family, and I prefer you give it to me.
Absolutely.
Okay, but very nice. And then one time I told women, and I did this in a message, because, you know, you can say a lot in a message and get the point across. I'm like, everybody thinks my husband likes banana pudding, and my husband doesn't like everybody's banana pudding.
Okay.
And plus, I'm the one that ends up eating most of it.
Okay.
Seriously. But I remember telling someone one time, or telling it in a message, my husband likes banana pudding, and I like turkey. So if you're going to make banana pudding for him, then please send some turkey for me.
Okay.
Send it to both of us. And, you know, I've had people say, oh, that's not right. That's fine. It might not be right for your house, but I'm not trying to live your life. This is my life, and this is my house.
Absolutely.
And my husband and I, we have some understanding with that, you know, because he wouldn't want some man doing something for me.
Absolutely.
You know, I'm going to do this for your wife. Okay, no, it has to be a two-way thing. The other thing that my husband and I do with boundaries, Pastor Chuck is my husband, we do not go to food meetings with the opposite sex.
Okay.
Okay, we made a rule on that about 20 years ago.
And we were talking about that too, especially people that are in positions of power in ministry, in business, governmental offices. We just seen it in the news, you know, the harassment that's been going on because of not having boundaries, right? And because of crossing different lines. And so what one person thinks is appropriate, oh, I'm just joking around, I'm just kidding, another person can really take that offensively. Or even if they're not offended, they can make it seem like they were offended.
Oh, okay. Now that's a whole... Okay.
Yes.
Let's go there for just a second. Because seriously, Michelle, the boundaries have changed with sexual harassment.
Yes.
Okay, that's how Andrew Cuomo got himself in trouble, the governor of New York. And then you have culture that has to be taken into account.
Yes.
And so now you have boundaries that have blurred lines.
Absolutely. See,
Okay.
so like me, I'm a hugger. My family is very, very affectionate. We
Okay.
hug, we kiss. So, COVID really threw that off for all of us. I
Yeah.
think it's helped me to not be that way as much.
Okay.
But if I know you or I'm comfortable with you, I'm a hugger. But I don't hug another woman's husband. I don't hug men in the church. I'm more friendlier, I
Okay,
guess you could
that's
say,
good.
towards women
Okay.
because I don't want it to get misunderstood
Right.
or, someone to be offended by that.
Right. I think that is really wise. And when it comes to the church, honestly, because sexual harassment is so prevalent right now, I think COVID is a protector of some of the leaders in church. Because, first of all, and there's a two-way street on here. So for women, I think the elder women have to teach the younger women, and some women just don't understand, okay? So as an older woman, because I'm old enough to be her mother, okay? I might not be old enough to be yours, okay? But I am old enough to be yours, okay? So there's some ways that it's okay to hug, but women, putting your arm around a man's neck, I don't care whether he's married or single, if you're in the church, that is not a proper way to hug. And for men, because I've watched guys in the church get in trouble with this kind of thing, standing with their arm around a woman for a long period of time.
And they may not even mean anything by it.
They don't need anything. I mean,
Yes.
It's not even may. This is totally innocent. The problem now is who's feeding that into that woman now?
Right.
So let's take Andrew Cuomo. I went to lunch with some of my friends a couple of weeks ago, right when he had just resigned, and all of us, and me too, I wish he hadn't resigned. I really do. But he didn't have the support. Everything gets political. But this is what one of the ladies said. And I said, She said, this is the problem. Then there was two problems. This is one of the problems. When I see a woman who says, well, he sexually harassed me, and then I'm seeing pictures of this woman with her arm around this man later on after this, smiling, chummy. She says, I have a problem with that, okay? And as I do too, and men have to understand, hell have no fury like a woman scorned. And for all of these cases, let's just say 90% of these cases, I don't care whether it's Cosby, Cuomo, Weinstein, or whoever, let's say 90% of these cases are pure. You got those 10% of women that sometimes they're after money, sometimes they've been scorned, sometimes they see a man who, he accepted her advances but not mine. And so they're the ones that water down the situations, the real sexual harassment cases, okay? And so I have real issues with a lot of what is going on. And so for every woman out there, if you're claiming sexual harassment, you need to be sure that it's sexual harassment. Just because he put his hand on your shoulder, that is not necessarily sexual harassment. Anyhow.
And then for the guys, they got to be careful, not to do that. And then I like how you said, not meeting for dinner or doing anything that would insinuate or would give off what is the scripture about not letting it
avoiding the appearance of evil?
Appearance.
Yeah, avoiding
just
the
appearance
of evil.
Right?
Yeah.
Some of the situations where, if you're, as a single woman, if I'm going to meet someone at 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning,
at nighttime, because things take place in the dark, okay, at night.
And then the next day I'm like, this happened.
You asked for it. Okay,
Well, I'm
not going to say
there,
I won't go that far.
Yeah, I wouldn't go there. This is the living room. We're going to have a conversation. Okay, I wouldn't go there. However, as a woman, I just say have respect for yourself, respect, as we said, for our time, and set those boundaries.
And don't put yourself in a situation. When I say you ask for it, that's to scratch that.
Yes.
Okay, take your eraser and erase that.
Yes.
Okay, erase that. Erase it. Don't put yourself in a compromising situation that is called defrauding. What is defrauding? Defrauding is promising something you don't plan to deliver.
Absolutely.
Okay, so if you're meeting a man at a motel after hours, okay, if you're meeting a man at a motel in his hotel room, if it's high noon, what message
or for men meeting these women? I said, and the other way around, for men meeting these women, those are not the right hours, and you have to have boundaries. So even for myself, like you said, for meetings, usually it's breakfast or lunch. Breakfast or lunch until I get to know a person. Then we could probably throw in dinner.
You're a single
but those
woman,
are boundaries.
so you can do that.
Yes.
Okay.
Those
with
are
the
boundaries.
opposite sex, with a married woman, unless your husband knows, or a married man, unless your wife knows and has agreed. Why people eat too much anyhow? I'm sorry, people. You don't have to meet at a restaurant.
And I think we've only met for lunch like maybe twice in all the time that we've known each other.
I don't even remember twice. Have we?
I think, yes. I think it's only been twice.
Twice, okay.
I think so. And that was just
and that's
just
a female.
Yes.
Female. But I have no problem going to lunch with people, my friends. And you're saying that. So, right, because when we're meeting on the telephone, and we need to have some more meetings. The point is, I'm going to tell you something, and bless her soul, she's gone home to be with heaven right now. But I'm going to tell you something that happened with my friend Annette Flowers. Annette went home to be with the Lord. You know that.
Yes.
About a year ago now. Wow. So I think it's a year ago.
Beautiful,
right around right
beautiful
now.
Woman of God.
And so she was married to Mike. Annette, the most gorgeous woman.
Yes.
And Mike, very handsome. So this is years ago when they lived in California, about 30 years ago they lived in California. So it was a Sunday. And so I'm going to give you the condensed version. But this woman every week was trying to get at Mike. And just flirting. She's trying to flirt with Mike, and she would never do this when Annette was around. One Sunday, I'm telling you about a man, kudos, check every place, set that boundary. One Sunday, the woman came and told Mike, why don't you take Annette home and then come over to my house?
Oh,
you know what,
wow.
you know what he did? He said, Annette, come here. Come here. He called his wife over. He says, Annette, this woman just asked me, why don't I take you home and then come to her house?
What? Oh, wow.
Seriously, Annette and I laughed about that for years. But that's a man.
She had to pick her face up off the floor.
And I bet she never did that again.
Absolutely.
Right. But the point was,
you gotta have those boundaries.
As the man of God, and he was a minister in our church too. He was, as a man of God, he didn't dance around it. He didn't ignore it, and he didn't understand what she was saying. He called his wife over. And how many movies are that you see where the man or the wife, it's not just the man.
Yes.
Where one of them don't tell the other one.
Or I like what you said, or act like they don't understand what's going on. You know what is happening. Stop acting like you don't know.
That's why God gave men wives, because sometimes men can be naive. Sometimes women can be just as naive.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously. But men can be so naive. And I remember telling my husband one time, I'm like, sweetheart, you know when you go into the cleaners and it's a Chinese cleaners and they don't want you to know what they're saying? And so they're talking to their friend in Chinese because it's a different language. I said, sweetie pie, women have their own language.
Absolutely.
And you guys don't understand it. Okay. And so, anyhow, that was, I'm looking at all these notes. Anyhow, so that was something that I admired.
And that's good in that marriage, because that's a healthy boundary where you're able to talk about and discuss and even laugh about the things that go on like that. So that's awesome for them to have that in their marriage, where they're able to communicate openly. And the same way with you and Pastor Chuck.
Yeah.
You know, I know over the years you've always had families come to your house. There's been so many different families that have come through the church. I look at Pastor Chuck as my pastor, a second dad. I mean, I look up to him. I can have conversations with him, but there's still boundaries that we don't cross.
That is so good you said that. Okay, because you look at him as your pastor, as your second dad. Even though we're friends, I still am old enough to be your mom. So I look at you as a spiritual daughter. So watch this. I look at you as a spiritual daughter. He looks at you as a spiritual daughter, but you're really still not.
Absolutely.
So there's still boundaries that have to be observed.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to tell you what happens with too many women. I've counseled too many women over the years where instead of a woman just talking to her husband and telling her how she feels, especially when she sees a woman that is what the Bible calls a strange woman, and they're out there, the boundaries now, I mean, are there even boundaries anymore?
That's a whole nother.
I know.
No, there aren't.
Okay, let me give you another one. What did I see the other day with the Whitney Houston and the girls, and he leaves her? Is that Waiting to Exhale?
It was a movie. Probably Waiting to Exhale.
Waiting to Exhale. So there's this scene in this movie, and this guy, Russell, is having an affair with, I can't remember her name, and but he's sleeping at her house at night, but he comes to her house. I just saw this like 3 days ago.
Okay.
And he comes to her house, and she's like, "Where you been? Have you been at your house or something?" He says, "What I do with my..." Wait a minute. He says, "That's none of your business." And then she says, "Russell, are you having sex with your wife?" And he says, "What I do with my wife is none of your business." I'm like, wait a minute.
Yes.
His wife.
And this is real life. This is real
you know
life. Absolutely.
Yeah. Michelle, I'm laughing, but you know what?
This is real life.
It is real life. It is sad that that boundary is on TV. What's that teaching our young girls? Well, you're waiting for him to leave his wife? God to give you your own. But let me go one more place. Boundaries with friends, because we're out of time. So boundaries within, I'm saying like girlfriends. If you see your girlfriend and she is, okay, let me give you the example that I gave. I don't know if it was you or somebody else I gave today. Oh, I called one of my girlfriends because I said, I want to talk to you about boundaries because we're going to be talking about this on the show tonight. So I said this, if it's raining and you're driving down the road, and as you drive and it's raining cats and dogs, there is a pothole big enough for your car to fit in, and you see that and you screech and turn around, and you're now turning around, but you see your friend is on that same road headed in that direction. Do you start beeping her and stopping her, trying to stop her from going in this direction because it's raining and she might not see it? So what do you do? So, watch this. So we were talking about, what if you have a friend? I'm going to ask you this, okay? Because we had this long conversation on boundaries today. What if you have a girlfriend and you see her husband is you actually know her husband is having an affair with another woman? Do you tell her?
That's a
we talked about that for a long time. Yeah, do you or do you not?
There's so many layers to that.
There's so many layers.
There's so many layers to that.
Okay.
So I've actually had a situation similar to that.
Okay.
So what I did, because we were at a public place, and it didn't look right. So I just told him, because I was good friends with him.
Okay.
You need to say something, because I'm going to tell her I seen you today.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
That's good. It's good.
Because I'm not going to betray my friend. So I'm going to say, oh, guess who I saw today?
That is so good.
So I'm like, yeah, let her know that you see me, because I'm going to tell her that I seen you.
Oh, wow. And it wasn't a Lifetime movie, so he didn't come and kill you before.
No. No.
Okay. No.
But if he thought about it, I have background and training.
Right.
So.
You have a license for a gun. You're a sheriff. Okay. So the answer that pretty much both of us said, because we didn't look at that scenario. We talked about it along. For the most part, we both said no, we wouldn't tell the wife, but we would do something to make her aware. Whether it's going to the pastor of the church, if she's in the church, and talking to the pastor to see, getting some counsel, or talking to one of the mothers of the church, and then making sure that the information that we had was correct. Okay.
Because even like what you were talking about with boundaries, I've known women that were in domestic violence situations. Don't get me to cry.
Okay.
But and when I did try to intervene, it backfired. So,
ooh, yes.
So when it comes to certain boundaries, they ended up, staying together, and then it got worse.
Okay.
So that's it's a tough situation, and I think you really just have to pray about it and do what you feel is right. I don't regret getting involved in that situation, because it might have saved a person's life, but at the same time, I don't have that friend anymore, because they felt I crossed a boundary, or the husband did.
Exactly.
So it can go either way. I just think you just really have to pray about that, because a bond between a husband and a wife, you're technically coming in between that.
And and you said a couple things with boundaries, whether it's this type of situation or pretty much a lot of situations. Okay, and we've already talked about one, just staying out your grown kids' business. That's their business. You can talk to them, give them your opinion, and then you're out.
Yes.
Okay, I've had to do this with all of my sons. This is what I think, but now whatever you decide, this is your life. But on that, what you were saying just now, so many times you can cross a line, you're the bad guy.
And your intentions were good.
Your intentions were absolutely good, and they were from love, but you can end up being the bad guy. And I understand, the older I get, the more I understand why so many times people don't get in people's business. The problem is sometimes they need to get in people's business and they don't, because more often.
So in my situation, I needed to. I was willing. If it's going to cost our friendship, then so be it.
If you're going to save her life,
I have to do what I need to do.
Yeah, you're going to have to. And you know what? What does the Word of God say? Matthew 18. Because I have a whole page, Michelle. These are all the verses that I looked up today. Don't have time to give them to you. But what does God say about intervening with boundaries? So one, if your brother or sister sins, go and point out their fault. You did that. Okay, just between the two of you. If they listen to you, you have won them over. But if they will not listen, take one or two others along, so that every matter may be established by the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses. If they still refuse to listen, tell it to the church elders. And if they still refuse to listen, even to the church, treat them as you would a pagan or a tax collector. You know what they did with pagans and tax collectors? They had nothing to do with them. And so I think that was brothers and sisters, Galatians 6:1. If someone is caught in a sin, who live by the Spirit should restore that person gently, but watch yourselves, or also you may be tempted. And I'm going to tell you how people get tempted today. When they condone in their friends what they condemn in others. When they make excuses. My friend is doing this, but you got to understand her situation. No, sin is sin. And so, there's so
much on this topic of boundaries.
With that, with the situation, because I've had situations where, like I said, I knew stuff and I didn't know what to do at the time. The problem is, Michelle, when other people, if you see something most likely other people do, and if you totally ignore it, then people get the idea that sin in the church is not, is acceptable.
It's okay.
And it's okay, and it's not. And I've had so many situations over the years where people just didn't know. You have to pray. You got to look at the Word of God. That's why you have elders and mothers, particularly mothers. Oh, my friend said this. She said if she knew that, she wouldn't go to the senior pastor. She'd go to the pastor's wife and have the pastor's wife talk to the mothers or whatever, however the pastor's wife wanted to deal with that. But once again, that's just on that type of situation. Let's see. So girlfriends, that's a situation that I had a friend who I knew was making the mistake of her life. Got mixed up with a man, and you know how I say it, Michelle. Everybody was telling her, this is the wrong person for you. This is the wrong person. The mama, the daddy, the friends, even the dog growled when she came away. Even the dog, you know, I'm saying that a lot of times. But sometimes all you can do, and I just said, you know what? I'm like you. You are my friend, whether you want to hear it or not. I'm telling you, if that means that you cut me out your life, but when this thing goes bad, and it does, they do, I don't want you to come back and tell me, I wish you had told me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And that's the thing. And then you got to put yourself in their place. What would you want? Because when people are in sin, they want to stay. Sin can be like a drug.
Yes.
It really can. So I wanted to say one more thing. What about young kids that are in the house and maybe the young girl keeps a diary?
I think that's a boundary that you don't cross.
I'm totally in agreement.
I think you need to leave that as is.
Thank you. I wanted to bring that.
Now, if you're seeing some behaviors or something like that that may alert you, I have a cousin whose daughter has a journal, and she did something that was awesome. She had her bring it with her. And she noticed some things, and she's like, "Can you read me a few pages?" You know,
really?
So out of your journal, because I think she had some things she wanted to express to her mom, but probably couldn't.
Okay.
And so now I don't know if she had already peaked or not, but I do think that that's a boundary that maybe shouldn't be crossed.
Yeah, I don't think parents should be looking into their children's diary journal unless.
Now I do search the rooms.
Yeah, okay, I don't have a problem with that. No, I don't, because that's your house.
Yes.
Okay, that's your house. I don't have a problem with that. That's just us, okay? This is just Michelle and I talk. And we got like about 3 minutes, Michelle. No, I don't have a problem with that. But if your child, like on that commercial on TV, where the guy is yelling, "Get out of my room! Get out of my room!"
Right.
Okay, and they're on drugs, and you know that. That's a situation where I don't even know if there's such a thing as a boundary if your child is on drugs.
So when there's danger involved, someone's life is in danger, drugs, alcohol, someone is being abused, I think it's okay to cross those kind of boundaries. Absolutely.
Or I'll give you another one that my friend said. She said she would get in her grown children's business if it was a situation that was going to affect her.
Yes.
That she knows something and this is going to affect her child to have to come back and live with her. Then she felt like, no, their business is her business. And I actually do agree with that.
And working in law enforcement, I see it all the time where the kids are selling drugs at the parent's house or something like that.
Yeah.
And the parents end up losing their home because of something that the kid did. And so certain things you have to, step in and say no. And there are certain boundaries even in my life when it comes to my walk with God. Certain things, there are certain boundaries that cannot be crossed with people. And I let them know right off the top.
Right.
God comes first.
Right. And you are a holy woman of God. Don't be looking at me like that.
Nope.
You put a ring on it.
There are definitely boundaries,
Yeah.
and sometimes, and now you have so many different beliefs, and some people want to argue political beliefs, spiritual beliefs, all these different things. So I'll shut it down if it's
Yeah.
getting out of control or we can't have a decent communication. That's a boundary that we will not be
I'm
crossing.
going to end with this last boundary, because today, my husband knows I'm a modest dresser. Like, this is not tight or anything. But my husband today was like, let me see the back of that. Let me see if your behind is covered. Because to him, to both of us, that's a boundary where the way we're dressing. And so we're always, both of us are looking at each other, but he's like, I want to make sure that you're not erasing a line. There's boundaries with that. So we've talked about so many boundaries today, and we've only scratched the surface. But praise God for this conversation. And we hope you all got something from this.
Yes. And even if it's setting boundaries within your own personal life, with family, with friends, setting your phone aside, not answering certain phone calls. Sometimes people, you have to, so certain things that maybe the Lord is already speaking to you about in terms of setting some boundaries within your personal life, because it can drain you when you don't have those boundaries. It'll affect you emotionally. We talked about physically, financially.
Seriously, I think the thing comes down to having boundaries as a man of God or as a woman of God. And I'm not even talking about male-female relationships right now. I'm like, we are supposed to be, okay, let me say this, and we are really out of time. Sunday, I was talking about Lazarus, okay, and Jesus raising him from the dead. But I realized something. You never see Lazarus, you never hear Lazarus saying a word. And yet the Word of God says they had that dinner for Jesus in his honor, and people didn't just come to see Jesus, they came to see Lazarus. So once again, they came to see Lazarus because of the power of Jesus in his life. And that's what people should be seeing with us. They should see a woman of God or a man of God. I've told my husband so many times, and he's told me the same thing. Like, even if I wasn't married, there are still some boundaries that I would have with the opposite sex. And even if I was even if I wasn't married, okay? There's certain ways I'm going to dress. There's certain ways I'm going to carry myself. There's certain ways I'm going to hug. I'm like you, I don't really hug men too much. There's certain speech that's going to come out of my mouth, because out of the mouth flow the issues of life. And your mouth can either set boundaries or erase boundaries.
Absolutely.
So, anyhow, we could go on and on and on about this. So praise God for each and every one of you that came to watch the living room tonight. We hope you enjoyed the show. Our purpose is we're just talking, and this is how Michelle and I talk. We're talking from the living room. And send us your comments. Where would they send comments? And if you have enough comments, we'll come back to this issue at a later time.
So you can comment on Facebook or on our YouTube channel. Also, you can email us at thelivingroomwithcharlene@gmail.com.
Okay, and it's right up here, thelivingroomwithcharlene@gmail.com. If you have some comments that you're in agreement or you're not in agreement, just kind of let us know, and we'll come back and talk. We can actually do a Zoom show on TV or on this LED wall, or we need to have a show where we can have an audience, and we'll let you guys know that. We need to do a living room where we can have an audience. Okay, so we are out of time. We hope you enjoyed this show on boundaries, and we'll see you next week. Are we doing
church and fashion?
We're doing changing cultures in church and fashion next week, because just like boundaries have changed, so have different things in the church changed, especially with dress, because there was a time if you wore pants to church, you were on your way to hell. Okay, and so things have changed. Watch us next week, and we'll see you from the living room. Bye.
Good night.
Good night.